It's 9:18 here, Big 550 KTRS. Well, with everything going on down in Jefferson City, right before the legislative session ended, John Deal, the Speaker of the House, had to resign after a sexting scandal came to light. Interns were taken back from universities. There is an investigation going on right now, and a lot of rumors about what is going on with Jefferson City and whether or not this intern program is being abused by some of the legislators. Under that umbrella, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch wrote a story a few weeks ago about a police report from Brittany Burke, who alleged that, called up the police and said, I blacked out, something happened, I might have been sexually assaulted, I need help. This Post-Dispatch story went on to write a story about a police report in which the police said that the investigation was over and that no charges were going to be forthcoming. This story that was posted on the Riverfront Times and is now the cover story, the shaming of Brittany Burke, goes into greater detail about that police report and the overall image and stories about Jefferson City and what's going on there. The headline, the cover story for the Riverfront Times, the shaming of Brittany Burke, and the author of that story is Andy Kopsa. Andy, welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're joining us here via Skype. Let's get to some this police report. You take into you dissect this police report. One of the things that the police said was that Brittany Burke. But by the way, we should also say I've got conflicts of interest all over the place. Brittany Burke is a friend of mine. Brittany Burke worked at KTRS Radio. We have an affiliation with the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. It is what it is. Those are my conflicts. Now let's move forward. In this police report, the police say that they stopped the investigation because Brittany Burke stopped cooperating with the police. You write in your story that that's not accurate.
Well, it's accurate that they believed it was okay to close the case because a alleged victim of sexual assault is uncooperative. And what I say in the piece is that is not best practice. And that, there's an increasing level of scrutiny that is apparent from reading the police report that's foisted onto Brittany. And she, like many victims of assault or alleged assault, begin to walk back and begin to become scared about pushing forward. So her not taking phone calls, her being what Detective Fink calls uncooperative, is no excuse for not pushing forward with an investigation in the interest of the state. So, a private citizen can't say, we're going to close the case.
So her, and certainly understandable, and much has been talked about, is that assault victims, rape victims, they go through varying degrees of emotional situations and or emotional feelings, and so they feel shame, they feel angry, they feel upset, they feel vindicated, they feel worried. All of those things can manifest in all sorts of ways. And as you write in the piece, the Jefferson City Police Department is not following the current set of standards to investigate if and how a sexual assault actually occurred. Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
But I think one thing I want to walk back a little bit is that, even though this is about Brittany, the story, this could be any woman. And this mishandling or this bungling or this, against best practices sort of way that apparently from my read of the report and a lot of people's read of the report is all too common in the way that we treat women who report potential assault. So it's Brittany, but it's larger than that. This is not an isolated case at all. Also, another thing I'd like to make clear is when we're talking about this case And the police report, let's keep in mind that this only stretches a week. So she calls for help, and they decide in the report that she's being uncooperative. And, she is feeling very defensive and scared and all of those things. So a week later, they decide she's being uncooperative and
right. It wasn't like 3 months later.
We're not talking about 3 months. We're not talking about any of that. So it's important to note that.
Yeah. Let's start at the very beginning. She wakes up one morning in the spring, this past spring, calls the police and says, "Oh my goodness, something happened. I blacked out." The police end up doing a rape kit, and yet that rape kit, even to this day, has never been tested.
Right.
How is that possible?
That is very possible. The statistics on backlogs on rape kits are legendary. A 30-second Google search on rape kit backlogs will yield a litany of results. So that's unfortunately not very uncommon. So, and just to make clear too, the police didn't. I mean, obviously, the police didn't conduct the medical exam. It was conducted by a specially trained sexual assault nurse. So, unfortunately, that's really possible. I mean, I think I noted in the story that at one point, Miss Burke was checking up on the kit and checking up on some of her blood work, and was told anywhere from, it's going to take 3 weeks, and then she was told it's going to take 5 weeks, and then the last time she spoke with somebody, it was going to be 5 to 7 months. So, yeah, it's not uncommon, unfortunately.
So we still, to this day, don't know if or what happened to Brittany Burke, who woke up that morning, in which, in your story and in the police report, it details that there were abrasions, there might have been semen present, there were scarring and bruising, not only in the private areas, but in other body parts. And so something happened, but the evidence was collected, but it wasn't tested after a woman who works inside the government goes out on a night of partying with elected officials in the capital city.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is, the report. Just to be clear, the report that the police filed doesn't detail, number one, the appropriate charge that is currently Missouri statute. And this is an important point to make, and I make it in the story about halfway through, is that there's nothing there's not a charge of forcible rape. It's either rape 1 or rape 2. The important thing to understand about that, and why it's so important in potentially the way that they handled the case, is that rape 1 or 2 in 2013 was added to the statute to provide additional protections for the victim. So in Brittany's case, where she was very open with the police, I don't remember what happened, I blacked out, all of these things. In the 2013 statute and update to the rape law, she was unable to consent. So that alone should have shifted the way that they looked at this particular case. And the report does not indicate that there were vaginal abrasions. It doesn't indicate that the sexual assault nurse said, I am checking the box that indicates I have a finding of a vaginal abrasion that is consistent with sexual assault. The police report instead refers to it as sexual activity. And there's a vast gulf between sexual activity and assault. And the fact that very key detail from the nurse and from the hospital didn't make it into this report is troubling. Troubling, very troubling.
Yeah, Andy Kopska is our guest. She wrote the article in the Riverfront Times. It's now up. It's a cover story about this incident that happened down in Jefferson City with a woman who worked inside the governor's office and a bunch of legislators who went out drinking one night. She wakes up and blacked out, calls the police and says, something happened to me. I'm not sure. I need help. The police then do the investigation, close the investigation, never testing the rape kit. One of the things, Andy, that I find unbelievable in this story is that the police in the report say she clearly wasn't blacked out because she was texting in the middle of the night. Well, anybody who knows anything knows that even if you're blacked out drunk, you can certainly function as a human being. You can text, you can call, you can drive, you can do all sorts of things while you're blacked out.
Correct. Yeah. So, I had a long conversation with the Captain Shoemaker, and he brought that up. Did you read in the report where she was texting in a blackout? And I basically made the same point. I'm like, did you ever drunk dial somebody? Did you? Right. And obviously it's an asinine point. It's asinine, and it's not even a point. And I just, this didn't make it into the piece because it's sort of irrelevant. But right. I asked him. I said, "Are you a doctor?" Of course he's not. So it's just this report is laced with those kind of assumptions did they make no sense.
Did they do a background check, and did they check out whether or not Brittany Burke had some type of criminal past or has called sexual assault out or accused sexual assault before?
No,
they did not. Okay.
No, what I suggest in the piece is that is a sample guidelines from the Missouri Police Chiefs Association is that is something that can be indicated. There's no evidence in anywhere that they did that.
This became a story after the St. Louis Post-Dispatch wrote about the police report. They came under some criticism for releasing the woman's name, writing about it this way. The police said to you they wish they never released the report, not for any other reason than it seemed like for the criticism that they have now become under because of the lackadaisical effort by the police to do the actual reporting.
So that's your question to me is do the police regret because now it's turned into a three-ring circus?
Right. Right.
That could be. That was not how it was posed to me. It was posed to me that they fight sunshine request tooth and nail, and that it was the city attorney's decision to release the information. I have no idea.
Why did they release the information? Do we have any idea why?
Because it's the law. And what they could have done, though, is they could have redacted the name. There are several indications, and this is something didn't make it into the report because it just became another rabbit hole. But there are provisions within the Sunshine Law in Missouri that the police can make a decision based on the case to release or not release information. And so, that the decision was in the city attorney's hands. So there is an out for public entities to refuse to release public documentation. But, in the age of transparency, which is ultimately very good, which is ultimately the right, way to go. Mm-hmm. There are caveats within even the Sunshine Law that they can push back on that. How much of that pushback came, I have no idea. Yeah. That wasn't indicated to me. But those caveats do indeed exist in the law.
Andy, last question for you, and I advise everyone to go to the Riverfront Times, read this cover story. It's on newsstands now. It's online. It's out there. We still don't know what happened to Brittany Burke. Brittany Burke still doesn't know what happened. The rape kit has yet to be tested.
Right.
In your story, though, in reading the police report through your story, it seems like there might have been some leads, whether it was elected officials or not elected officials. We don't know, but it seems like she left the bar with some unknown person followed her out the door. All of that's never been followed up on by the police.
That's correct. And this is this is victim blaming, in my opinion, that this is what happens when women who decide to go out and have cocktails report sexual assault, is that we are then treated as the suspect versus the victim. And so the fact that none of the leads were followed up on, the police department told me that was because Ms. Burke didn't want to pursue it. And that is, as I note in the story, something she adamantly denies. And, even if she came down and sat in their police station and said, I'm not leaving till you close the case, it's still incumbent upon them under Missouri law, the current law that they failed to acknowledge in the report, that if a woman is blacked out, she is incapable of granting consent. Brittany Burke was incapable from all reports of granting consent.
Right.
So, but another thing I'm going to get in here is that don't let the St. Louis Post-Dispatch off the hook. So I know that we could talk about that whole half of it, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
That is a whole other story. We don't have the time now, but they reported what the police report said. And the criticism they've come under is that they released the names, they released all of that, but they were following just what the police report reported.
They followed about the first, in my reading of it, the first few pages of it. It's a 21-page report.
Right.
And, it's also important to know that there was no background information gathered from Ms. Burke. She was never afforded the opportunity to talk off the record about what may or may not be true or false in the report. Wasn't afforded the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And again, this story is about Brittany, but it could be about anybody, and it's about journalistic best practices. And in my experience as a journalist doing this for years, is that you give people the opportunity to say that's not how it happened, or this is and that was never there. So that's a concern.
Andy,
concern for assault victims.
Sure.
For sure.
The website riverfronttimes.com, rft.com. It's on newsstands. It's the cover story. It's unbelievable when you read the whole thing from top to bottom. Andy, thank you for joining us, and we'll have you back as needed. Thanks for checking in.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. Andy Kopska via Skype here, talking about her cover story on the Riverfront Times and what is going on down in Jefferson City. It has a lot of tentacles. 9:36, Big 550 KTRS.
Let's head to the roads with Ed Smarin at the Golden Oak Lane Traffic Center. Ed?
Roads cleared up pretty well right now. We've got no accidents or serious holdups. Any place to have a couple of areas of road work, though, on 64 westbound after Spirit of St. Louis Boulevard. The left lane is closed till 2:30. Exit from westbound and eastbound 44 to Memorial Drive. That's going to be closed for road work. Actually, the westbound side is closed till 2, but the eastbound side to Walnut there is closed until 4 o'clock. Traffic brought to you by Farmers Insurance. If you don't endure enough on the road, you may also be driving with gaps in your insurance. At Farmers, they're out to help you close those gaps so no one falls victim to them again. Talk to a Farmers agent today from the Golden Oak Lending Traffic Center. I'm Ed Smarin on the Big 550 KTRS.
Temperatures today stay on the coolish side with highs in the upper 70s. Clouds rule across the bi-state. There's been some rain south of Metro St. Louis. Bigger chance of rain coming in tonight. That chance for just about everybody. Some thunderstorms, some heavy downpours are possible tonight. 68 for the low, but quickly we dry out on Friday and we start to warm near 90 on Friday, low to mid 90s Saturday and Sunday. It'll feel like summertime this weekend. I'm Fox 2 meteorologist Glenn Zimmerman for the Big 550 KTRS.
And right now it's 64 degrees with cloudy skies right here at the Big 550 KTRS.
This is McGraw Live on KPLR 11.